Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. This episode is brought to you by The Wellness Paradigm, a holistic health coaching company shifting the way that women understand and heal their bodies. Through bioenergetic testing, functional lab testing, and nutrition, we uncover what traditional approaches often overlook so you can stop guessing, start healing, and finally feel like yourself again. No more one-size-fits-all protocols, just real answers, deep-rooted healing, and the clarity and confidence you deserve to feel incredible. It's time to shift the paradigm of women's health. Now, on to our show. And today I am joined by Sara. I am so excited that you are here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to deep diving what you do and why it is so different because she has created this incredible program called the Wellness Code Academy, where she really teaches health and wellness professionals how to use something called a hair tissue mineral analysis, and really helps them understand why complex clients aren't healing. And as a dietitian herself and a functional nutrition practitioner, we see so much complex health issues and people skipping this incredibly core foundation, understanding their minerals. But I love that you also blend a little bit more of this nervous system and trauma-informed work that is frankly just as important too. So Sara, I'd love for you to give us a little bit more insight on who you are, why HTMAs? Why did you get into this line of work?
So I'm traditionally trained as a registered dietitian, and we probably all know the conventional side of that. And I really quickly realized that that was not for me. And I started to become really interested in more of the functional, health and holistic health, and realized that if I wanted to do it, I would have to create my own business around it. And started out very traditionally in the standard functional medicine approach, learned to run a lot of labs that tended to be very expensive, learned how to create protocols based on those labs, whether it be supplements, but also telling people what to do as far as nutrition and lifestyle changes. And I felt like it worked until it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the more practitioners are in that space of working in that way, they really start to realize that there are big gaps in that approach. And that approach, again, may work well for some people, but I think especially in today's day and age, especially post-pandemic, stress and trauma are at an all-time high. It's only getting more and more significant.
Mm-hmm.
And the protocols just weren't enough. And so I met my business partner, Jen, who has an incredible story in and of itself. She actually dealt with a lot of chronic health challenges, and spent over $500,000 out of pocket in the functional medicine space, doing the best of the best, cutting edge everything. And she still wasn't well, and in fact was a lot worse, and now completely broke.
Mm-hmm.
And more traumatized, So she ended up learning more on her own and figured out what was missing and was able to put all of the pieces of the puzzle together so that she could finally, start healing. And now it has become kind of her turn pain into purpose to teach other wellness practitioners what she learned in that journey. And I connected with that story and I was like, I need to know what you know.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was starting to see it a lot in my own clients, people already, like I was like their fourth, fifth, sixth practitioner, or people sharing stories that I've already spent all this money and now I'm broke and I'm still not better,
Mm-hmm.
And so we've completely kind of shifted our approach using a much more, still using science, but more of also the art and psychology of trauma-informed transformational coaching, which is a huge missing piece that I was never taught in any of the numerous certifications I invested a lot of money in. And so that's what we've based Wellness Code Academy on, creating these dynamic, truly holistic, trauma-informed, whole person, whole system, transformational coaching approach, because that's what people need. And that's really the future of healthcare, to stop being on this hamster wheel that a lot of people are stuck on.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean, in a different lens, it's why I actually got into bioresonance instead of so many functional labs. It's like, man, this is just like there's this huge emotional element. I love that you mentioned also post-pandemic. People don't realize, like, when did this start? About 5, 6 years ago. It's like what
Mhm.
happened during that time, but it created such resistance in the nervous system, and people are stuck. They can't get through it. The protocols that used to work don't work anymore for a lot of people, and I find that so fascinating, and I love that you mentioned it. Now, can you talk a little bit on the importance of minerals? So, why would somebody care about minerals, and where have you felt like weaving in more of this nervous or trauma-informed mineral coaching, for lack of better words, how has it amplified people's results?
Yeah, I mean, minerals, we always say that it's like gas for your car. They're the spark plugs of the cells. And really, health begins at a cellular level, but also disease begins at a cellular level. Like your cells are going to be affected first and foremost because that's where our energy is being produced.
Hmm.
And every system of your body needs energy to function well. You know, your digestive system, your endocrine system, your nervous system, your immune system, your detoxification system, like they all need gas in order to function. And when people are under these chronic stressed states from hundreds of possible places, like stress can, like people don't always realize, because some people are like, oh, I'm not under stress, or I'm not more stressed than the next person. And it's like, well, if you're dealing with chronic health challenges, you are stressed. But the
Yep.
stress, yeah, it could be, mental, emotional, it could be physical, it could be environmental, like,
Yep.
and it's often a combination of all of the above in some way,
Mhm.
shape, or form. And that's what's essentially draining us at the cellular level. It's because we use minerals to deal with stress, right? So like so many people use HTMA or hair tissue mineral analysis as just a mineral test. And we look at the test, and yes, we can see a lot of physiological factors going on, like blood sugar and thyroid, function and things like that. And you can, use it to see nervous system states and whatnot. But then they're just saying, okay, well, here are the mineral supplements to correct the imbalances, in order to heal. But we go much deeper with HTMA and say it's really much more than just a lab test, it's a life test
Mm.
because your body your minerals are responding to your lived experience, essentially. And that is something that it started in utero, not just when we're born. And so your body is going to change minerals because it's going to burn through them quicker, it's going to store them differently, and things like that based on these various stressors going on. And so when we know how to interpret it through that lens, we start to see the deeper patterns that are affecting people, not just the physical stuff, but like the mental, emotional factors. Um, you know, do you tend to push through things? You feel tired, but you continue, like you feel like you're going through life with your foot on the brake and gas at the same time. Like, so we're able to see these patterns and ask the deeper transformational questions with clients because yes, minerals can be supportive. I'm not saying that they're not and that there's no time and place for supplements to be of support, but again, that's not why minerals are out of balance in the first place. And so it's much more about helping a client essentially heal their life in order to stop the bleeding, so to speak, when it comes to the minerals, so that the systems can kind of come back online, so to speak, instead of being in survival mode. So it's about looking at minerals through that lens and being able to use transformational coaching to ask deeper questions to the clients, to work with them in a much more collaborative way. Because we know nervous system dysregulation and trauma, which pretty much everybody has. I'm going to say that, like whether we
Mhm.
realize it or not. The root of it is often a loss of power, where we feel powerless to change something. So a practitioner stepping into the expert role and just handing over personalized protocols and telling them what to do and what not to do, that's not really helping them heal long term. right? So that's why we got to change it and be like, yeah, we can use HTMA as a tool and a roadmap to look at physiology and psychology because they're both bidirectional. We can't heal one without the other. But then we use it as a coaching tool, and we use that approach of working with clients, helping them become their own best self healers. That's really where the magic happens when we're talking about healing in general, but being able to use minerals in that way.
Wow, I love that. I mean, it is, I think this conversation is becoming more common because it is so important. I see this all of the time where it's like, well, I did testing, I spent all this money. Okay, I helped a little bit, and then they reverted right back to where they were. It was like, well, why? Why do we keep getting sucked back into the old patterns? We didn't heal from the root isn't always that your potassium is low, right? It's like I feel that social media just wants to blow up a lot of this root cause being the candida, the mineral, but it's so much deeper.
Way. And it's, yeah, I would say low potassium is probably never the root cause. I'm going to have to say that. But yeah, and it's unfortunate. I mean, I always say everybody has to walk their own journey. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, sometimes people do have to go down the path of a lot of the most ineffective approaches before they finally realize and kind of have that aha moment that they need to try something different. But by spreading this message, I'm really hoping that we can save as many people as we can from going down that route, because again, so many people are thinking, oh, easy, I run a lab, it tells me what bacteria I have, it tells me what nutrient I'm lacking, it tells me which hormone is insufficient, and then I can use these protocols and maybe tweak my lifestyle, to fix it. And again, it's kind of what I started to see. Like, again, it worked until it didn't. Like, some people were like, oh yeah, this is great. But then I would start getting clients coming back to me the next year or 3 years or 5 years down the road. And they're like, okay, well, all the symptoms that you helped me eliminate are now back. So what should I do? And the more I saw it, I was like, you can't unsee it when that starts to happen. And so I'm like, a lot of practitioners are finally saying, okay, what am I missing? You
Yeah.
know? And so it's not just missing the root cause piece, which definitely is, because, a lot of people think nervous system regulation means suggesting, breath work,
Yeah.
or whatever. And so they think I used to think that too, because that's what I was taught,
Hmm. Yeah.
But it's also in very much how we work with the client, like not just handing over instructions, but like really, really putting them back in the driver's seat. And training programs, like so many practitioners come our way going, I spent so much money on this big name functional medicine training program and I left and I feel like I don't even know how to work with people. And, so it's the coaching piece that we also see hugely lacking in how to actually do that.
Yeah. So true. Uh, when it comes to nervous system, if somebody is listening and they're like, I hear this buzzword a lot. Yes, I do meditation, quotation, quotation, breath work, quotation, right? What are your favorite ways to work within the scope of practice? Because that's a big thing too, within a coach's scope of practice. What are some things that you find move the needle the most for a client?
Great question. I would honestly say that can take a little bit of time, more time than probably people want.
Yeah.
But the more I kind of allow clients to step into their own power and kind of come up with their own solutions, the more effective and the more lasting they're seeing those shifts. Like I have a client right now who's tried a bunch of different practitioners, and she sent me a message the other day and was like, wow, like, yeah, sometimes I really just wanted you to just tell me what I should do. And it would kind of be frustrating to me that instead of doing that, you would just keep asking me questions. But she's like, it took me some time, but now I see why you did that. And she's like, that approach has changed my mindset deeper than anything I could have ever imagined. And like, I now realize Like I had to be the one to see my life, and make changes that I felt, I needed to make and be able to, implement the things that felt best to me. Like I think that in and of itself is just more effective than almost any one tool or anything like that we could recommend to people, because again, at the root of a lot of this is them being able to take their power back,
Mm.
where it's been lost. And that alone is, powerful for anybody. Like, think of any sort of achievement you've done on your own. Like how good did that feel ultimately versus if somebody else did something for you? And I honestly find that that's the biggest needle mover that we can learn how to do with clients as a practitioner.
Uh, this is so common. And I love that you mentioned that because it's just people want you to have, like, I hire you, you tell me answers, right?
Right.
And, that's why you are stuck. That's why you keep hiring more people is because you think the next person's going to have some magical answer that's going to solve all your problems when the answer's inside of you. We have to unlock it. And, it's that is the work that I find to be some of the hardest thing. It's easier to take a supplement and a powder and whatever. And we want the labs because it's validating. Look, there's something wrong. This is the way I'm feeling. But understanding that, you have your own intuition and, doing the work that way, I think is super, super powerful.
Yeah. And like, I think a lot of practitioners that don't really have a trauma informed knowledge,
Mhm.
because like trauma informed doesn't mean being a therapist. Like it's
Right.
far from it. It's at least understanding trauma, understanding how it's showing up in your clients. Because if your clients struggle to take action, if they're, in denial, if they're uh, perfectionists and people pleasing, like that's trauma. Those are
Mhm.
trauma responses. And so you need to know as a practitioner how to recognize that and how to guide clients, because otherwise you're going to show up to every session. They're going to be like, yep, still didn't do it, and then that's not really going to be effective for you. But the number one thing too, we feel it's the responsibility of every practitioner to become trauma informed, is because your own trauma can show up in your work with clients. And so
So
you
true.
mentioned like people coming to you wanting to be fixed. Well, it's also up to us as the practitioner not to step into the role of fixer either. Like
Mhm.
not to let them get away with that. And so many practitioners are like, yeah, well, I feel it's my responsibility, to give them their answers and to give them their solutions, because otherwise, yeah, they're going to blame me and all these things. And so, yeah, hello, that's your own trauma showing up. And the more you do that for people, the more you're going to attract the people looking for fixes into your business. And that is going to drain you and burn you out faster. And then you're going to be out of a business because you now have nothing left, to give. And I think that's what's happening a lot, unfortunately, for practitioners. They're struggling to make money in their business, they're burning out, and they don't realize these factors are at play. So yeah, you can refer people out. I'm not ever saying not to do that. And there's a lot of my own clients would come to me already in therapy and they'd be like, I've been in therapy for 10 years and I'm still stuck here.
Yeah.
Because it's like we could go into that for a half hour in and of itself of why, that doesn't always work. But that's just again, it's going to show up. It is showing up in your work if you're a practitioner. And there was a woman the other day who said, I actually had to pause my work with a client because I was recognizing all the trauma she had. And I realized I couldn't help her, you
Mhm.
know? And sometimes you work with clients and their trauma starts to come out in your work because you're maybe aggressively pushing, mineral protocols, things like that. And now they have the emotional upheaval and now you have no idea what to do. And maybe
Mhm.
you say, hey, you should go see a therapist. And they're like, I don't want to see a therapist. I can't afford it. I tried one already. It didn't help. Like, so we want to really change the narrative out there and like,
Mhm.
and get out of the standard functional medicine model and really teach practitioners how to do this within their scope so that they're not contributing to more harm.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
An important conversation to have. As much as this is important too, I love talking about the actual physical things too. Like I love blending this mineral because if your minerals are super out of balance too, you're going to have a hard time regulating your nervous system and vice
Oh
versa.
yeah.
It's this
Hmm.
like total loop that I think people, especially on the internet, it's like, well, I am a practitioner, I run labs, or I do nervous system. And it's like, that's why people don't heal fully, is it's just one side of the puzzle or the other. I know that as a gap I saw for sure, and that's how I got into blending it in a different way. But, talk about some of the most common patterns you see from a physical level that, from the people that you work with.
Yeah, I typically see a lot of blood sugar imbalances.
Yeah,
You
heard about
know,
it.
I mean, whether high or low, but I always say what goes up must come down. So it's like two sides of the same coin.
Mhm.
But blood sugar is usually a big issue. Like everyone has sluggish thyroid for the most part.
Yeah.
Adrenals are crashed, but it's like that's all the same. There's not different root causes of that, really. Like
Yeah.
that is just the body going into conservation mode,
Hmm.
because it only has so much energy to deal with all of these things. And so it dials those things down because it's like, okay, well, I don't have enough energy to balance your blood sugars and to support your thyroid and to, help your adrenals function well. So I'm dialing that down just so that you have enough energy left over for survival. So these are very common patterns because they're all kind of a reflection of what we call cell danger response mode, where the cells are sensing more threat than safety, essentially, right? Because mitochondria have many roles, but monitoring for threat and safety is one of them. Producing energy is another big one. And so those threats can come from, again, those various places I mentioned. Like, yes, threats could be a parasitic infection. They could be that you're being exposed to mercury from a filling. And so those things are important to address. Like you mentioned, we don't want to ignore physiology.
Yeah.
But like you said, people tend to focus on one or the other without really knowing how to properly lead and guide people on both of them. Because, yeah, the nervous system might not be ready for a parasite cleanse. It's like, so you really also have to think very critically instead of just being like, because that's like when I learned labs, it was like, all right, you do a stool test and they've got Giardia and they've got H. pylori and they've got Candida. And so here, go after them all, you know?
Oh my God, I just had this conversation.
And it's like, but yet the person is in mass burnout.
Yep.
They can't function, they're in like functional freeze mode where they're going, and they think they have a lot of energy, but that's only because they haven't stopped and slowed down for a hot minute.
Mhm.
And so now you add all these supplements to try to kill the things to fix what you're finding on the test.
Yep.
And now you get into the trick of the people that like to run a lot of labs at once.
Yep.
It's okay. Now you're also addressing all the infections, and now you're adding in, stuff to address the nutrients, and now you're adding in stuff for hormones. And it's like people think it's their full-time job to take supplements now.
Yeah.
But they also don't realize that supplements are more information that your nervous system has to interpret.
Mm.
And if your nervous system is not in a space to do that, as many aren't, then now you're just overloading the system further. You're stressing them out because now they have to remember to take all these pills and whatnot. Like it can even happen when it comes to suggesting nervous system regulation tools. Like I have so many clients who are already so overwhelmed by their day. And it's like, now you're asking me to do more because now you're asking me to spend 30 minutes meditating. Like, get out of here. Like, where am I supposed to fit time in for that? So it's like, but this is what's happening still. Like you kind of mentioned, more and more people are kind of awakening to this. But I still feel that the outdated old model is still way too prevalent. Like we got a lot of work to do to help bring people into this awareness so that we can really start to shift the paradigm so that people that are legit trying to heal and, really want to heal, are able to have the information that they need to actually do it as effectively as they can.
Yeah. Yeah, I resonate with all of that so much. Um, I think an example of this that might hit home for people is I remember this one client came to me. She had gotten a quote. She was so desperate to feel better. She had gotten a quote from a functional medicine doctor. And this is what we think. We think that's the answer for a lot of people. It's like, I'm going to go to a functional medicine doctor. No hit on them. They have pros and cons. But, and they had quoted her $18,000 for a 6-month generic program. All these thyroid and these IVs and all the, okay. She got into our program, couldn't take 2 drops of trace minerals. Immediately nausea, just like couldn't any supplement, magnesium, no, out the system, right? And obviously her HTMA, like we were running those at the time with it. It was depleted, right? That was, it's validating, but it's like I could have probably just told you that, just talking to you for 5 seconds. But, that was when it really hit home for her how much the nervous system played a factor because it didn't trust her at all, right? And so gradually we didn't do a lot of like there's no nutrition, there's no detoxing, there was no like all of that. Like the doctor was telling her, it was like we just have to get your body to feel safe. And gradually we could add in something like magnesium and some trace minerals. And then gradually, yes, she did feel better, but it wasn't the H. pylori and the Giardia and all those things. It was like, yeah, those are very physical things that are living and they're okay. But it was like this click moment for so many people when I tell that story where I was like, oh, interesting. Okay. Maybe this is playing a little bit more of a role than I thought.
Yeah. And I get messages on the regular of people in these situations, like my HTMA practitioner ran the HTMA and she put me on all these minerals and I don't tolerate them. Like I'm sensitive, but she told me I need to take them in order to fix the minerals so that I would feel better. But she's like, and again, this is that practitioner unknowingly creating more trauma because now you're basically saying, no, ignore how you're feeling. Just keep pushing. This is what you need,
Mm-hmm.
And so we, we just want it to stop. That's the goal is to get to that space where practitioners are at least really learning how to work more effectively with people so that they're not causing these types of things.
Yeah. And I love what you also mentioned about doing the work yourself too, because so many practitioners start their companies from a trauma response, right? And that's how they work. And then they realize, why am I feeling so burnt out? It's because they have so many different mirrors. And without doing the work yourself, you get burnt out. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, like we have to have capacity in order to be able to do all the things we need to do as practitioners to build successful businesses, which all starts in the nervous system. And people
mhm.
co-regulate. Like that's an important part of nervous system regulation. So if you're jumping onto your client calls dysregulated yourself, like you're not going to help them regulate their nervous system from that state. So it's about learning their being skills and like embodying the work themselves so that they, can work more effectively with people.
If somebody was wanting to feel better, maybe they've gone to different practitioners, they've ran different labs, they're just not sure what to do next. What would be 1 or 2 different words of advice, little guidance where you would direct them?
Good question. Well, I guess it would depend on if they're wanting to work with somebody else or if they feel like, there's no more money left to to do that, to go down that route. Because there are good practitioners out there that understand the role of physiology and psychology and who aren't just going to spend a lot of money. And again, there's a time and a place for certain labs. Like, yeah, there are legit people that have mold issues, that need mold testing and things like that, but that aren't just going to say, all right, we're going to run $1,000 worth of labs right up front, and I'm just going to give you, this protocol. There are legit practitioners out there who don't do it from that space. And so really, if they feel that they have, time and energy and money to invest in looking for practitioners like that, then that definitely can be helpful because we do tend to heal better when we have the right support.
Yeah.
But if someone maybe didn't have, like, I would suggest, again, going back to the basics, going back to the foundational things. Like, yeah, how am I sleeping? Am I resting? Because sleep and rest are different. Movement and sunlight and, nutrition and hydration and just like going back to the foundations. Because so many people, I've never had a client not need foundations.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people understand and know that these things are important, but they're struggling, to incorporate them into their regular routine, which again can sometimes be because of underlying traumas that are causing us to develop more bad habits as coping mechanisms. But like really picking something small, like what are your low hanging fruits, something that would be a really easy first step, to take and set a goal and find ways to, keep yourself accountable to those goals. Because the
Mm.
more people try to incorporate and change all these things at once, and then they struggle to do it with consistency, they fall off the wagon and now they're telling themselves, yeah, see, I can't do it. Yeah, what's the point? And then we reinforce kind of those negative beliefs in ourselves.
Hmm.
So, taking an honest inventory of where your stressors that you at least are aware of, are coming from and how you
Hmm.
might start shifting it, even if it was just by 1 to 5%. And what would that look like?
Well, if people wanted to find and connect with you and what you do, where can they find you?
Yeah, so our website is wellnesscodeacademy.com, and that's also our social media. We're on Instagram and Facebook at Wellness Code Academy there as well.
Amazing. I love what you're doing. I love the program, and I'm so appreciative for people like you and the world that are spreading this super important information. So, doing amazing things. Sara, thank you so much for being here. Listeners, thank you for being here. Go check her out. Go shoot her a message and share this with somebody if you find that it would be helpful for them. Sara, have a great rest of the day, and I'll catch you guys on the next show.
Thank you.